Hey, welcome back to the Rise with Torie podcast. I'm so excited that you are here as we talk about all things faith and fitness and family. And today we're going to talk about friendship. And I just thought it was the perfect person to have on here as a guest. Oh, look, you got hearts going. Is Adrienne, one of my besties. Adrienne, I'm so excited to have her here and just talk about friendship and
Yay!
how we can cultivate friendship, biblical friendship from that faith-based perspective. So welcome back, Adrienne. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I didn't scare you off the first time, right?
I know. No, I'm okay. I came back.
But friendship, like when I think about so friendship as an adult. So think about friendship when you're growing up, and it's kind of, you make friends with the people you're around, your classmates, your youth group friends, I had dance friends, you danced, you had dance friends. Like you have these friends and you're kind of put in these situations that you kind of just naturally, I think about when I went to college, my roommates were my friends, like these situations where it just naturally happened. But then something happens when you become an adult, and especially when you start having kids or you start working a job full time, and it's like, wow, I don't have time to make friends, or I don't have time for friendship. And so I want to dive into that today about just one, like, why is making friends as an adult so hard? And then two, how do we cultivate those friendships? How do we foster those friendships, especially from a biblical perspective? Because yes, we can have friends in different pockets in different areas, but there's nothing better than, or nothing like that I feel like God created us to need and to have the community, but faith-based community, biblical friendship. And so I want to talk about that today.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Let's dive in.
Yes.
So my first question for you is, as an adult, can you share a time that you met a friend, made a friend, stepped out of your comfort zone to make a friend?
Yeah, I mean, aside from our story, which was a super awkward exchange, but it worked.
It worked.
It worked. I would say okay, so I have a colleague that I'm working with, and we're kind of in similar stages of life. Not really. I mean, she's married, she's in the health profession. I'm in the health and wellness field. And so we collaborate a lot. And all of our conversations have been around work stuff, like programs that we want to do together and initiatives that we're pulling together for like work stuff. But we hit it off really well and we like one another. And so I was like, can we have a lunch that is like us, but not this? Like, like can we put in our schedule to do this, what we do now, without the work part? And she's like, please. I would love that. And so what ended up happening was we invited her and her husband over to our house for dinner. She already like kind of knows my kids from like joint things that we've done together. Her son is an adult child, so she loves having kids around. And it ended up being amazing. And now her husband is like, hey, we need to do this again. Get it on the calendar. And so for us, it was,
hey, that's a bonus that the husbands, I mean, they want to link up. Hey, even if they didn't, she and I would still be friends. Exactly. But the bonus, but it's that
everybody is everybody on board. And so for us, it was literally like, be intentional about wanting to nurture this relationship, recognizing, hey, I like you. I want to get to know you more outside of this work capacity. Can we make that happen? Would you be interested in that? Because I feel like she'd be the type of person who either would say, well, I kind of like to keep, my work and
Mm,
personal separate,
mhm,
something like that to kind of like let me off the hook easy.
mhm,
Or, someone who might say, well, sure. And then it never happens. But it was
mhm.
literally like, yes, please, let's do this. And now we're trying to find the next date that we can do something together as a family. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that, I mean, it's kind of, you have to embody the courage that you tell your kids to have.
Yeah.
Like this is a
Yeah.
conversation that I would totally have with my daughter or even my son.
Yep.
Well, hey, if you want to hang out with them, why don't you invite them to whatever? And it's like, let me make sure that I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah. That's funny. That's kind of how one of my situations was too. When we moved up here to Tallahassee from Orlando, I was like, all right, I gotta like put myself out there to make friends. And I invited a couple girls to do a girls' night at my house. And it was like, it wasn't awkward, but it was kind of like, hey, we're not real close, but would you like to come hang out at my house? No pressure to dress up or get fancy or anything. But it was after that very first girls' night that we did that we were like, we have to keep doing this. Like, we have to
Yeah.
put this on the calendar. And it became a standing girls' night of the first Tuesday or first Thursday or whatever of every month is our standing girls' night. The husbands know
That's
this,
awesome.
get the kids in bed, that kind of thing. And it obviously has evolved over time and changed. And sometimes the friendship group kind of changes a little too. But if you want that to happen, you have, just like you said, you have to be intentional about
Mm-hmm.
asking the person or putting yourself out there, just like we tell our kids. I love that you said that because
Yeah.
just like I keep reminding my kids of this when we move out to Utah of, hey, you're gonna have to make new friends. You're gonna just to kind of prepare them,
Yes.
not to be like, hey, being hard on them, but just to prepare them of, okay, we're in this together. Mommy has to do it. You have to do it. Dad, we all have to do it together. So we're in it together, but we have to put ourselves out there.
For
What
sure.
are some of the common challenges adults face in either making friendships or maintaining friendships
Hmm.
as adults?
I mean, we're so busy like
Yeah.
that, like in both ends, making the friends and keeping the friends. And so
Mhm.
we're so busy. And I think about just kind of from my experience, I have places that I go and places that I frequent, but it's kind of you don't want to, you don't want to impose on
Mm,
somebody else as well. Like I know what my days look like. Some days are cray cray. Other days I have some breathing room. So
yeah.
it's like I know that I have some flexibility in my schedule, but not everybody does.
Yeah.
I know what my evenings look like, but I don't know what other people's evenings look like. I know that when I'm driving, I can easily talk or
Yeah.
whatever, but somebody else might be busy. So it's kind
Yeah.
of um, really like the story that we make up in our own heads
Mm.
that other people don't have time for us.
Mm.
So I think that's a huge barrier or can be a huge barrier. I think the
Yeah.
other part too is especially as women and mothers and all the things. I mean, we have the common denominator of woman,
Yeah.
but once you get married, that's another life stage. Once
Hmm.
you have children, that's another life stage.
Hmm.
Then you have women who are not married with children,
Hmm.
and maybe they were married at one time or were never married. So it's all these little dynamics and
Yeah.
pieces where there's probably more that we have in common than not.
Yeah.
But sometimes we allow those differences to kind of dictate who we gravitate towards to
Yeah.
become friends. Like I know for me, um, and it hasn't necessarily been intentional, but I don't have a lot of single friends,
Hmm.
which isn't necessarily a bad thing,
Hmm.
but I'm just saying it's kind of like if I kind of took note of that a little bit more, would my friend circle be expanded or
Hmm.
would it kind of naturally be, okay, because I think right now with single friends that I have, we're friends, but it's like situational friendship.
Yeah.
Like we're
Yep.
friends at church or we're friends in this meeting or we're friends in this context, but I'm not really going to call them up to talk to them. I'm not
Yeah.
really going to ask them to hang out. And it's nothing that they did or, not because I don't like them, but it's just something about connecting with someone who's in a similar stage of life as
Hmm.
you for those intimate moments.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about this before we started our conversation, and it's like you want a friend who's going to call you up in that life stage. Like I
Yeah.
know that I can lay it on you in a in a text, in a voice text.
Didn't I just do that to you this morning?
You totally did, and I was like,
Yep, I'm here. I'm
keep
here.
going, bring it, bring it.
And I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm just venting right now. You don't even have to respond. Like, that's the kind of friendship you want, and where you can be like, I'm just word
Exactly.
vomiting. You don't have to respond. I just got to get it out.
And I'm just like,
And
like she
sometimes,
knows I'm going to respond. Like,
I know, but I feel like you saying like the stages is so important too, because of that reasoning of if I'm in a different state, like if I'm don't have kids or in a different stage of life, it's hard to have that banter or hard to call each
mm-hmm.
other up if maybe you don't understand, or maybe
Yeah,
uh you know, you're just not in that season as well. However, I do feel like it's important to have people outside to expand your
yeah,
um just view of things. I know for me, I know this is different than friendship, but for me, this last year when I was working, it gave me a different appreciation, a better appreciation for working moms who have to go into a job and then they have to maintain their house and they have to still get in a workout and eat right and all those things. And I was like, wow, I was thankful for God for giving me that perspective so I could be able to, hey, I get it now. Hey, I understand.
yeah,
I feel like that in friendships too, of it is good. It's harder, I feel like, but it is good to have that either different ages, different stages. So you can open up your perspective a little bit and be like,
mm-hmm.
oh, okay, yeah, I'm hearing
For
what she's
sure.
saying. How can I take that in and think about it for myself or apply it for myself or what?
Mm-hmm.
That's I was also
Yeah,
going to say when you said about stages of I feel like that's hard for maintaining friendships or cultivating like growing friendships because sometimes one person is in a really busy seat. Like for me, this last year has been hard and busy and like, whoo, my margin. But then the next season, maybe my next year, next few months or whatever, might be a little lighter. Where,
yeah,
just for example, I'm not saying this is true, but maybe you will go into a busier season, or maybe you had a
right.
busy season too, and we both had a busy season, and it's harder to find that time to connect. So, I feel like
Yeah,
that's definitely a big thing is the season and place that God has you sometimes. And I want to say, and maybe you can speak on this too, of I feel like we can't take it personal. I feel like sometimes
yeah, yeah,
take
yeah.
it personal in that I know I've done it before to friends in the past of taking it of, oh man, it's me, or they don't want to hang out with me, or they don't want to be around with me, when really they're just in a busy season, or they're just stressed out to the max, or they just don't have the margin right now to meet
Mm-hmm.
me where I want to be met at this point in
Right.
time.
For sure. And, in those busy seasons, it's a quick text.
Hmm.
It's a meme. It's sending your friend reels. Like
Yeah.
I feel like that's what we do on a regular basis, but I think that kind of like picks up whenever we're super busy and we can't connect as much as we would want.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as I would love to have a standing Friday FaceTime with you, I know that it would not be consistent, and like kids would come in at any moment. Like, and like you said, like you can't take that as a personal slight, like, oh,
Hmm.
she doesn't want to be my friend. No, she's
Yeah.
busy and
Yeah.
she's trying to be your friend. She's trying to connect. But I also know that like if you were to have some sort of crisis and you were like, I have
Mhm.
to talk, like at that point, okay, let me find a way to drop stuff and
Yeah.
get on the phone, get on a FaceTime, like let's work through this. So it's you have to be flexible, and um I think there's a level of like confidence and security
Mm,
to have about yourself to like not feel like, oh, because they didn't
hmm.
heart my whatever, like now she doesn't want to be my friend. Maybe she didn't like it, or maybe she didn't see it yet, or maybe
Or maybe
maybe.
she
And what
maybe
happened?
maybe she sent you a million reels and she's waiting a month for the other person to respond of like, hey, I just sent you, and the other person didn't even see it.
Hypothetically speaking. Or maybe this is what I do all the time. Maybe she opened her phone and it accidentally opened the
Yep,
message. And
yep.
now
It's
but you
red.
don't have time to read the message. And so now it's not notifying you that there's a message. So days go by and you're
Yeah.
like, huh, didn't listen to that audio message. Sorry. So you just have to keep moving and
Yeah.
keep reaching out, and also recognize that the same in reverse,
Mm,
like to not be so distant or not be so, I mean,
mhm.
because I know that I've sent you like, hey, it's a crazy day, but I'm walking the dog, I have this thought, and just
Yep.
sending the or whatever, just to keep the lines open. I
Yeah.
think I texted you, this was maybe like after several days of not communicating. And then
Yeah.
I finally texted you some like, wonder where you are. And you were like, I'm in the Bahamas. I was like, wait, what? When did you go to the I was
You're
like,
like,
well,
oh,
excuse
excuse
me.
me. And it was such a quick text because I jumped
Yeah.
on I don't know what kind of charges I would get. So I jumped on real quick to check in with the realtor to see if we had any showings. And I saw your text and I was like, oh, I'm in the Bahamas. Gotta go.
And I could have taken offense to that, like, oh, she can't even make time for me. No, because if it was reversed, it'd be the same thing. I'd be like, okay, sneak this message in.
Uh,
I'll reach back out as soon as I have service or like when we get home or whatever. And it's realizing, hey, you might want to spend some downtime with your family like
yeah.
that. And I think that's where it helps to have someone in similar life stages or
Mhm.
at least empathetic to where you
Yeah.
are, because otherwise that could get really sticky.
Yeah.
Someone choosing their
Yeah.
husband or choosing their kids or choosing their whatever over, opportunities to do things with a friend. And it's like, have some understanding and balance of, what
Yeah.
is actually going on
For
in each
sure.
other's lives.
I think grace and um what's the word? Not acceptance, the word grace and just like, oh, not tolerance. I'm trying to think.
Compassion.
No, just like in understanding of, yeah, it might be a busy season, or yeah, I want to assume the best of this friendship because the minute
Yeah.
we start having unrealistic either expectations, unrealistic demands, or things that maybe we're even just conjuring up in our minds, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it then becomes unhealthy in the friendship, but more so for ourselves because then we're not voicing it to the other person, or like you said, we're creating a story in our minds, or
Right.
down
Mm-hmm.
on the friendship or on ourselves when really it's like, oh man, yeah, she just has been really busy, or maybe she's really stressed or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of
Yeah.
leads into the next question of conflict. What does it look like to handle conflict healthy in friendships? I know I work on this because I am not a conflict person. I don't like conflict. Sometimes I can come off a little passive aggressive in dealing with conflict. I told you this morning a little what was the word I used? Snarky. A little snarky where I'm like, okay, I'm just a little irritated and I get a little, so I'm still working on this. I'm sure we all are, but do you
Mm-hmm.
have any tips, ideas, anything that you have used or that help you in dealing with it?
I had this or have this one friend who We had a misunderstanding, and thankfully, she reached back out to me, but she said, "Oh, I guess we're just not as close as I thought we were," and kind of like went down the rabbit hole of like why that's true. And I was like
Mm.
listening, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was driving. Whoa, 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 whoa. And so I listened to her, and she kind of just put it out there, and it was kind of like her coming to terms with, we're just friends, but we're not as close of friends as
Mm.
I thought, or she thought. And I messaged her back, and I was like, wait a minute, no. And I had to, one, correct some things because like she misinterpreted. So I had to
Mm.
correct that. But then also I had to like be vulnerable myself and let
Mm.
her know, like, I need you in my life. Like
Yeah.
there's no like situation or world where we are not as close as you thought. We are. I want to be,
Yeah.
and like hear the reasons why. And for her to hear that from me, because I'm an emotional person. I feel like I could be very vulnerable, but sometimes it happens out of frustration. Like,
Mm.
it's kind of like the angry cry, and then you're venting and all
Yeah.
that. But like to kind of like open up the vulnerability of what I need, or letting somebody else know like what I need, that can be kind of hard for me.
Hmm.
So for this person, for me to do that, she realized, wow, like that took a lot for you to do that. So you might be telling the truth. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
it's like
Yeah.
me being vulnerable enough to let my friends know, I love you. I need you in my life. Here's what you add to me. Like, here's how you make me better, and just go from like not being afraid to share that
Hmm.
with somebody else. I think our culture, oh man, this world is hard because I think our culture likes to try to twist things and
Mm.
make things into what they're not. And
Hmm.
so, especially for our kids, them learning to do that with a friend, especially if it's like a same sex friend, like my
Hmm.
son with his guy friend or my daughter with her girlfriend, like they misinterpret that sometimes as it
Hmm.
being something that it's not. But it's like, no, just like you said in the beginning, God created us to be in this world not alone, to be with
Hmm.
other people in community. And you have to let other people know how important they are to you, or else they won't know, or they'll
Yeah.
make assumptions. Or, hey, on the other end of the spectrum, you may have to have conversations with people to let them know that you aren't as close as
Mm.
they thought, because you want to make sure that it's authentic on both ends.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a hard conversation, but the great thing is I think we came out of the other side of that, like with a deeper friendship,
Yeah.
and knowing that we can be vulnerable with each other and like share, anything at that
Yeah.
point. So
I think
yeah.
the word vulnerable or vulnerability is key, if I can say it, is key to any relationship, any friendship. But I feel like it's one of the hardest, like you said, it's one of the hardest things to do because it's like you're opening yourself up, you're exposing yourself, and it's like, oh, like that fear of either rejection or they're not going to take this or hurting someone or whatever that is for
Mm-hmm.
you to open yourself up to that is super scary. But I feel
Mm-hmm.
like when we do that, the relationship can either, like you said, grow, get deeper, or it may go the other way. Like it may, and that's okay.
That's
I
okay.
know you and I have talked about this in the past, about different like types of friendships and levels of friendships and stuff. And sometimes if we do that and that person decides to walk away, maybe they were a season friend or someone
Mm-hmm.
who was just
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be in your life for that time or that season. But man,
Yeah.
being vulnerable is super hard, but rewarding, I
Yeah.
think, in the end.
I think I can't remember if we shared it on a previous episode or not, but the quote from Irene Rollins, and she says, You should be, what is it? Authentic? No, yeah, authentic with the many and vulnerable with the few.
Yes. Yeah.
So, like, and I think that's kind of the misleading piece of social media. I feel like I'm closer with people on social media than I really am because I see their posts, they comment on my posts, and so I'm like, oh, we're friends. But it's like
Yeah.
I couldn't pick them out of a crowd, or
Yeah.
maybe it's somebody that I went to kindergarten with and I haven't seen in 20 years or how many years that was. It's like
Yeah.
that kind of helps in positive ways to close the gap for
Yeah.
relationships, but also it creates this kind of false sense of a relationship because it's social media. So you're being, authentic with people because I'm posting the good stuff,
Yeah.
that I want them to see. And sometimes I might
The
post something
hard.
that isn't so good,
Yeah.
the hard
Yeah.
things that you're going through for encouragement or to encourage others who might be going through something.
Hmm.
And so there's value in that. But I guarantee you, I am not posting the deep down, dirty, like vulnerable stuff that's happening,
Yeah.
not because I don't want to be real or authentic, not because I'm ashamed of any of it, but because not everyone has earned the privilege
Hmm.
to know that stuff
Yeah.
or to walk with me through that
Yeah.
stuff. There's only certain, I mean, and even people that I truly think are friends, I'm like, I don't know if I should reach out to them about this. But I mean, like for you, listen, I'm like, I know you're busy, but this has happened.
That's why we are so blessed to be in a generation with voice text because
Yes.
I can listen and then my kids interrupt me and I pause it and then I'm like, well, got to go back to that
Got to
conversation
go back
later.
to that.
But the word I keep thinking about is trenches. Those people that
Yeah. Yeah.
go through the trenches with you and you can be vulnerable with, but are in the trenches with you of, okay, I'm here. Even if I don't have anything to offer you, I'm praying for
Right.
you. I'm here for, like, if you need to vent, vent to me. I'm here to go through this with you. So the trenches, I feel
Yeah.
like, is where that deep friendship cultivates, grows, but we have to be willing to let those people come into
Yeah.
the trenches with us. What is it called? Not foxhole friends, but oh, I can't remember what it's called. It's a military term where the guys are in the
It's
foxhole, or
not foxhole
maybe it's foxhole friends. I
because
thought that was
that's
different.
like what that spot's called.
Yeah, where they like get in there. Yeah, maybe that's what it's called. But anyways, those people who you're being vulnerable with, but inviting them into that space, and you
Hmm.
are just, all right, we're getting deep, we're getting dirty in the trenches together. Like that's where those friendships grow.
And I would add, pray about who those people are because I had a friend in the trenches with me for years and something went down, and you don't want a friend who's going to just hype you up or just
Mm.
fight for you and be in your corner the whole time. Okay. Hear me out. You also want a friend who, yes, is going to be in your corner, but also help you see maybe where you've erred or where you need to like
Mhm.
see Jesus in this moment, like someone that's going to point you back to something that is confirmed in scripture. Like if you have that friend that's like, yeah, girl, because that was me. If that was me, I'd cuss them out. I'd leave them,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
What? Like, okay. And so when you're in the trenches, you want somebody, like you said, who's willing to kind of get in there with you and get dirty. Like they're not
Mhm.
afraid to get tears on their virtual
Mhm.
shoulder,
Yeah.
all those things,
Yeah.
but also who can like take a deep breath with you and say, okay, let's take a look at this.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
To meet you where
I
you're
mean,
at,
meet you where you are.
but then call you higher. Yep.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yep.
The
Yep.
what is Kara calls it, get better friend. Your get better
Yes.
friends of, hey, I'm
Yes.
not co-signing your mess, but I'm gonna meet you in it. And then I'm gonna call you up and be like, all right,
That's right.
now how do we move forward, or how do we grow from this? You brought
That's
up
right.
you brought up like a friendship ending, can you share an experience without like we want
Yeah.
to be
Hmm.
respectful to people, but has there
Yeah.
been a time where you've had to either end a friendship or gracefully exit a friendship, or maybe someone's done it to you? Have you had a time like that?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to kind of that example that I was talking about where, I was in the trenches. She was in the trenches with me, and the advice that she gave was not advice that, um, I mean, if it was like a worldly friendship, you're right, I'm doing
Mhm.
it. But then you
Mhm.
follow that advice and you're like, well, where does that put me? Like, where does
Mhm.
that put my family? Like, where does that, and so it doesn't align with God's word, his will. And so that particular friendship, we're still cordial.
Mhm.
We still like if we see each other, we chat, all the things, but there's no more texting back and forth. Like there might be a text here or there, but there's no texting, no memes, no,
Yeah.
no trying to foster the relationship.
Yeah.
Um, and that's hard because, especially if you've had a friend for a long time
Mm.
and they've been with you through a lot of things, and then you have to realize, okay, this might not be, something. And I'm of the belief that if we're supposed to come back together and like have that friendship again,
Yeah.
God's going to open a door
Yep.
for that. But there just hasn't been, I don't know if on her side as well, but there just hasn't been that release to
Mhm.
say, yeah, you can let them back into your life in the capacity, that they were in,
Yeah.
versus like, yeah, they can still be a part of, the celebrations and the posts and the
Hmm.
happy Mother's Day post, all those things. But
Yeah. You're
but
still
kind of
happy
like,
for them and want the best for them.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, sometimes
Hmm.
I had
Yeah.
a similar, not similar situation, but I don't, I'm sure there are people that have like let me go, but like I haven't been aware of it.
You
Just
didn't
like,
know.
oh, we just grew apart. Maybe there has been situations where someone's like, I gotta let this Tory girl go. But in my mind, I'm like, oh, we just grew apart. But
Hmm.
I can think of one specific friendship that I had to remove myself from because it was causing division or tension in the marriage. And to me, I
Hmm.
was like, I was trying to be there for her as much as possible and point her back to Christ through everything she was going through. But
Hmm.
because her husband was not happy about it, and it got to the point where she was like, oh, I don't want my husband to know I'm with you. And I'm like, hold up. Like,
Right,
that's
right.
not good for your
Mm-mm.
marriage. And two, that's not
Yeah,
healthy for me to be like, wait a second. Like, you can't even
yeah.
be around me and not let your husband know. So it was such a
Hmm.
hard decision. I prayed about it. I talked to my mentor about it. I was like, what do I do? Because I feel like at that time I was supposed to be pouring into her and pointing her back to Christ in the hard things she was going through. So when God was like, it's okay to release that, I was like, oh,
Hmm.
this is going to be painful for both of us. And I did. I went through a mourning period. And I think I shared this with you before, but I went through a
Hmm.
mourning
Hmm.
period where it was like you lost somebody.
Yeah,
Good,
100%.
I lost a really good friend that I was in the trenches with, but it was just maybe for better for both of us, for me and my heartbreak,
Yeah,
maybe for her marriage too, of
yeah,
we had to go separate ways. And same thing, like
yeah,
I'd see her and say, hey, and we talk, but
yeah.
it was
And
one
it
of those
hurts.
bless
Yeah,
and release. And
that's
then,
right.
yep,
That's
and
right.
then God had to come in and
Hmm.
heal, and then he brought you into my life. So that was part of my healing. Yeah. But yes, like I think we gotta
Yes.
honor that when we pray about it and say, God, is
Hmm.
this friendship still God honoring, or is it time
Right.
for me to, is it still honoring you, or is it time for me to bless and release this person because it
Yeah,
no longer is God honoring?
that's
Um,
right. Mhm.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and ask you some of your tips, because I know you have some good thoughts and ideas on this of how we might have touched on a few things, but like how to make friends, how to cultivate those friendships, how to grow those friendships a little bit. Because I think that's
Mhm.
the number one thing people say or not complain about, but like, I don't know how. I don't know how
Mhm.
to make friends.
Yeah, yeah. So one, we'll go back to, what we just kind of talked about at the beginning is ask somebody to go to lunch for coffee,
Mhm.
do a Zoom or FaceTime coffee. If you both have littles and you can't get out of the house, I mean, find a way
Yeah.
to use technology to bring yourselves together. If there's something going on um, where you have common ground, like at church or at work or something like that, sit together and like share
Mhm.
your notes and talk about things. Again, it comes from one of you being vulnerable enough to need somebody in your life. And I think,
Mhm.
as women, as professionals, as the superstars that we are, we want to tell ourselves the lie that we don't need friends. We
Yeah.
don't need anybody. And that's a lie. I mean, you may
Yeah.
not need somebody to do something specific, but in the grand scheme of life, you cannot get through this life alone. And
Yeah.
so being vulnerable enough to say, hey, can I sit next to you, when we go
Mhm.
to this meeting? Or, hey, after, service, can we go grab some lunch or coffee? Or,
Mhm.
hey, I had a question for you. Do you mind if I call you, and just, whatever your comfort level is, just start reaching out and see where it goes. Also, to not be so desperate for
Mm.
friendship that you think that everyone is or is going to be your
That was me when we first moved here. I like had my radars up of like, is that my new friend? Is that my new friend? Is that my new friend? Because I am such a people person that I let fear of
Mm-hmm.
not having friends or fear of moving and not knowing it, like I let that really create some anxiety in me of
Yeah.
constantly looking for that new friend.
And I'm the opposite. I'm like, I was an only child. I love
Mm.
quiet alone
Yep.
time. And so I kind of told myself the lie, I don't need friends. I'm good. Especially when COVID happened. I was like, good. I don't want to be around anybody anyway. I'm in my house. I'm good. Like, I
Meanwhile,
was
I was
fine.
dying. I was like, no.
I was fine. So like that's the balance, right? Like that's how we have and if you know that you lean one way or the other,
Mm.
that's a prayer point. Like that's a place to say, okay, God, I know that you created me for friendship and relationships. Help me to lean the opposite way. Like give me those people skills that I need to meet somebody new. Give me the confidence to know that I don't need to be with everyone. Like
Yeah.
whatever that is, it's like and not confidence, I can't think of the right word, but like the resolve or
Yeah.
whatever it is, like to know that the right people will be with me.
Yeah.
And I would say the other piece is to or like the other piece of advice would be to like just be a good friend to someone else. Like you don't have to necessarily expect a friendship to come out of a nice gesture or
Mm.
interaction, but like if you're doing something kind or nice for someone, be open,
Yeah.
even if they're not in your same stage of life. Be open. There's a young lady now at our church who I kind of think maybe she like. I mean, she's kind of open, to get to know people in general, but it's like she's kind of gravitated towards us and she's a young adult. And so I'm like, okay, like I think this is like a nice opportunity to be friends, but I know it's not going to be like a 2 a.m. friend. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like this is going down late. It's not going to be that. It's going to be more of the like friendship support,
Yeah.
mentorship, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So like just have those nice, be willing to do a nice gesture and just be open to people. Like,
Yeah.
you mentioned fear, like fear kind of being one of the reasons why we aren't vulnerable with other people. I mean, when we're not open to other people, the people that God created, the people that God created in his image, then we're not being open to him. We're
Yeah.
not trusting him to protect our hearts, and we're not trusting him to protect us even when we do get hurt. Like
Mm.
I could have been very angry with God whenever that other friendship
Yeah.
fizzled out, because I'm like, you brought us through so much,
Mm.
so many life stages together, only to bring me to this point, and now she's not here. Like, what was the whole point?
Yeah.
You don't care. And it's like, actually, that's not true. Like that was right before I met you too. So it was like it opened
Yeah.
me up to see, okay, yes, someone can be a quote unquote good friend to you, but are they a godly friend to you? Like
Mm.
that's something that you can look at those relationships around you and just pray that God will bring you godly friendships, and he
Yeah.
will orchestrate
Yep.
those opportunities if you just are willing to take the step out. Like,
Yep.
are you willing to go to the after work social? Are you willing to
Get
um
uncomfortable.
go get uncomfortable? I mean, so many people are like, I don't do people.
Hmm.
Well, that's why you don't have friends,
Hmm.
or good friends, or, that's why you're lonely. That's why you're mad and
Yeah.
angry, so just be
Yeah.
willing to be around people and see what God does.
Yeah. Especially having friends that are the same gender, right? So we have our spouse. So if you are married or dating or whatever, like you have your spouse, and
Mm-hmm.
that's its own thing, and that's special, and friendship and that. Oh, sorry, that's my alarm to pick up Cora soon. All these darn half days. That's a different friendship in itself. And then over here is our girl friendships, or
Yep.
our same-sex friendships of like,
Yep.
I need this person because, yes, while I love my husband and he's great, he doesn't understand some of the things that, just like we are talking about seasons, he doesn't
Yes.
understand some of the things that I go through, that he just looks at me like I have two heads. And I
Yes.
can be like, okay, Adrienne, I already shared
Yeah.
this with my husband, and he was like, well, just do it or whatever. And I'm like, I
Right.
need to process this with you.
And I
I
was like,
already
just do
shared.
it. No way. So, like, I'm giving you all the stuff because it's like we just see things differently. Listen,
Yes.
I knew you were my person when my husband and I, we were having some kind of discussion, and he was like, did you talk to Torie about this yet? Please text her. Like, he's like telling me to talk to you about it, because not that he wanted to check out, but it was like
But they
he knew I
know.
needed to process this. He's
Yes.
like, no, you need your
Yes,
girlfriend
yes.
for this.
That's mature of him to be like, because I know sometimes men, they want to be fixers, they want to solve it, they want
Yeah.
to, but sometimes the solving is not helpful. Like I told you, and I shared this with you before, this was probably recently too, that I was saying, oh, it was about applying for the job. And I listed all these and all this stuff, and he's like, well, just do it. And I'm like, that's not, I need to process this. I'm like, okay, Adrienne, got him a little voice text. I'm like, please help me like process this and work through this, because my husband said, well, just do it.
You need someone who will help you process,
Yes.
even if it's not verbally processed, like however you
Yep.
prefer to do that. Like, you need that person that you can just feel like you can share things with, because yeah, there's certain things that should stay in your marriage, but also like sometimes you will talk me down. Like, I'll
Mm,
be so riled up about something, and we'll talk through it. And then I'm like, you know what? Yep, it was not that serious. Or here's another way to look at that.
yeah.
Or here's something else going on. And then by the time I interact with my husband, it's better because
Yeah.
I
You
had that
need
person
both.
that I
You
could.
need both
You need both.
perspectives. You need both perspectives, because you get the more nor I'm generalizing men, but
Right.
more logical, like, quick. They don't have as many words, but you also need the girls to process through and be like, okay, let's think about this. What about this? Okay. And then you
Yes.
marry them together and you're like, yes, I got my dude, I got my girl, I brought their things together. And then the Lord, right? And then you meet in the middle and the Lord just helps you. If you're watching on YouTube, you're probably like, what is going on? The last thing I want to talk about is just long distance, right? We know this well. Long distance friendships. I know it's terrible and it's so hard, but I feel like we live in a generation, in a time that social media and Zoom
Mm-hmm.
and FaceTime, we have that capability to still be close friends or still be friends with people,
Mm-hmm.
even in distance. So people move, right? You have friends and then
Yeah.
move. Or you meet someone like you and I, we never even lived in the same town, but we met and here we are. And so I love that social media technology has opened the doors to these kind of friendships that otherwise may not have existed. What would you
Mm-hmm.
say are some of the tips or things to help people that are maybe a friend of theirs is moving soon, or maybe they will have a friend that moves, or maybe they do have a long distance friend that they're trying
Mm-hmm.
to stay connected to? What are some of those things that, and we can both share on this, that help
Yeah.
that relationship alive?
First, establish that you want to maintain that
Yeah. Yeah.
relationship. Like a lot of what we talked about today is just vulnerability, like
Yep.
establish. So when you and I officially met, and I did the awkward thing of
Want to
asking
be
if we could
friends?
be friends, you were like, yes. That was in a whole other state at a retreat, not home, whatever. And so in that environment, yeah, we're best friends
Yep.
immediately. Like it totally
We're going to
happened.
stay in contact because we
We're going to stay in
know. Yep.
right, but when you leave, life happens, things get
Mhm.
in the way, your schedule gets back to the grind, all the things. What have you done to set yourself up to maintain that friendship? So,
Yeah.
like, establish, hey, we're going to text each other. Hey, I think we did a Zoom thing,
Yeah.
or not Zoom, FaceTime, for a couple of weeks, or a couple of like once a month, whatever. Establish some places in your schedule where you will make time for that friend, even if it's quick,
Mm-hmm.
and then and find ways to reconnect whenever possible. For us, we have not done our girls trip yet. However, even though you're in Florida now, when you move to Utah, it'll be quicker and cheaper for me to fly to Utah to see you than it would be to drive or fly to Florida to see you, which is crazy because we're both on the East Coast.
That's
So,
crazy.
like, that stuff where and plus, I'm going to visit you so that we can go to Dry Bar together. Okay.
Yes.
We're doing it. All right.
Yes. All right, we're
Because
putting
you're
that on
not
the
far from,
list.
yes, on the list, because you're not going to be far from Provo. So, yeah, so like those are things where start just making ideas and lists, and then you could even find, if you're not a social media person, I mean, just commit to writing each other.
Mm.
Like, I mean, I don't know, I just thought of like, yes, write each other, but like, what if you had like a little notebook that you mailed back and forth and
Yeah.
like wrote notes to each other, and like that's now something that you can gift to your children. I mean,
Yeah.
listen, whatever it is, like it doesn't have to be cookie cutter, it doesn't have to
Yep.
be social
Think
media,
outside the
but it
box.
has to be something.
Yeah.
If it's a relationship that you want, you have to be the one to take the initiative to nurture it. And that's on both sides. Like, I
Yeah.
can't just rely on you to text me and be like, yep, we're best friends. And I can't be the one texting you all the time.
Yeah.
We both have to take that initiative
Yeah.
to
And check
stay
in
in
and
contact.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love all of that and I agree 100% with all of that. I know some of our things are sending reels. Like if we're watching reels
Listen
and
all
one we
day.
think of each other, we just send it to each other. And for me, it's like, hey, I'm thinking of you here, or I think you will find this funny. And sometimes, we have a whole bunch. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's random. But that's definitely one of the ways to just keep like for us, it's humor. So it's
Yeah.
mostly like, hey, here's the humor side. Or I miss
And
you.
listen, not to interrupt, but like that's been a huge pick me up sometimes for me because
Yeah.
there have been times where you've been super busy and I'm like, oh, I want to call her or text her, but she's busy. And then I'll open up Instagram and I'm like, oh my God, she sent me 8 reels. And then I like watch them.
I was
So
thinking
it
of
like,
you.
you were thinking of me, even though you
Well,
were
only
busy.
because it's at 11 o'clock at night or 10 and you're asleep. So I'm like, well,
I'm
I can't
out.
text her and call. And sometimes I do anyways, but I'm like, I'm sending this to her. She'll have some things to wake up to. So that's definitely, but like you said, if you're not on social media, some other ways. We did that in college. We had, so this was back when the Traveling Pants movie came out or whatever. And all my roommates loved that movie. So we did the traveling notebook. So over
Oh,
summer, we all took turns writing in it because social
oh,
media was kind of
cool.
a thing, but not really yet at the time. And so we'd write in the notebook, and I think we put pictures, and I need to see who has that notebook now, but and then we'd mail it to each other and stuff. So I love that. I love that idea
Yes,
of
yes.
if you're not on social media or if you don't want, because some people just don't want to be on social media a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and that's great. I think just when you think of the person, texting and saying, "Hey, I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
of you." Or
Mm-hmm.
if a song comes up and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I got to share this with her." Even it doesn't have to be these long check-ins, which those are great too. Because I know when we
Mm-hmm.
get busy, it's like, okay, I'm checking in. How are you doing? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Update me. But then in between those check-ins, it's great to have those just little pop-in text or a
Yeah.
little song or I'm thinking of you or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like maybe something's coming up in their life or something and just sending a quick little text. I think that keeps
Yeah.
the one communication going, but two, like the bond, because if you do want to keep
Mm-hmm.
that relationship going, you got to
Mm-hmm.
find ways to I always come back to intentional. You always have to find ways to
Mm-hmm.
be intentional of
Yeah.
keeping that communication going. Because I have
Yeah.
people in Orlando that, I mean, I wasn't super close with, but I it was situational friendships, church, whatnot, and then they kind of fizzle out, and I miss them. But it was one of those things where we're not being intentional about keeping the
Yeah.
friendship going, which I have one still down there that I owe her a big apology because I've been super absent lately. But she's one that I have kept in contact with and tried to keep the friendship. And then I have another friend from my longest friend from like middle school who
Mm-hmm.
we hardly ever check in, but we know that when we do check in, it's like nothing has changed and we can just
Right.
keep the friendship going. So that's one of
That's
those
right.
like lifelong friends where even if time passes,
Yep.
hey, we're still good. It's
Jump back in
just,
there.
yep, you just jump back
Yep.
in. And then what were the other
Yeah.
friendships that we said before? The
Gosh, acquaintances.
situational,
Yeah, acquaintances,
acquaintance,
situational, uh,
the lifelong.
and then like your person
Yeah,
was kind of
yeah.
like the epitome of like there's a was it best friend and then your person
Yes,
like best
yeah,
friend is like yeah I love her we're so
yeah.
good we're close we're tight but I don't know if we're like there and then then
Well,
you
oh, and
have
there
your
was
person
seasonal friendships too. So kind of
yes
situational,
yes
but seasonal too. Of sometimes you have
mm-hmm.
certain friends in certain seasons, and God knows that you needed this person
Yeah
season, and
yeah
kind of fizzled out. So, okay,
yeah
we got to wrap it up. I want to ask you,
okay
you love joy. We love to bring the joy. What has brought you joy in this last week?
Okay, so technically, since it hasn't been a full week, I'm going to count Saturday
That is
in this week.
yeah.
So I coached, co-coached, because it was myself and a teacher at my daughter's school, my daughter's Girls on the Run team. And she was a part of Girls on the Run last year. And there were two other coaches. And last year, I was so proud of her. But when we got to, not but, I was so proud of her. And when we got to, I want to negate that, to the 5K, I ran it with her, and it was the worst experience of our lives. I mean, I had to go back and be like, did y'all train at all for this? Like, it just was,
I vaguely
it was,
remember you telling me about that.
oh my gosh. And it ended up ending in this like heartwarming, like how you would watch a Hallmark movie of a kid who struggled and then all the other kids rally around them to be like, you can do it. That's exactly how this 5K ended. She's like screaming, crying across the finish line. Ah! And her friends like grab her hands, like, come on, we'll do it with you. And I'm just like tearing up behind her, like, oh, she has friends, like it was the worst ever. Well, this year I was like, okay, we're going to do this. So I helped to coach the team. And even during the practices, they have a curriculum that they follow with activities and things. So I'm like, is she going to get enough running practice in to be able to do this? So we got to the 5K. Listen, that girl, listen, she took her time. Okay. There's a picture from one of her run buddies of her picking flowers on the course, but
it was her
like
break.
you'd be like, that's about right. That was her break. But she came across that finish line, not last this time. I mean, last year she was the last kid. This year, nope, she was like right there in the middle of the pack of people finishing, smile on her face with her friends, with her run buddy. And it was just the best way to celebrate her growth. And she came off of it saying, you're going to coach again next year, right? And at this point I was like, and I'm like, you know what? Yes, because it was a challenge for both of us in different ways, but just to know that we had that experience together and to see her growth from one year to the next, and for her to get excited about physical movement. Like, you're a runner. Aunt Torie is a runner. Adrienne is a walker. Okay. So for her to get excited about this, I'm like, I'm going to have to send you to Aunt Torie. You're going to be a weightlifter. I already know. Like,
I'll train her.
Train her. Get her right. Get her together. Keep her safe. That's it. What about you?
So funny. For me, oh goodness. This week has been a little just ups and downs, mostly because of, I already told you this, but just for the listeners, like the house selling process, it's not fun. It's hard. It stinks. So it's kind of been a little downer, but I would say my new job, I'm loving my new job and the things I'm creating and the freedom that I have in it to create or cast a vision, right? So I've been tasked with, hey, what is this going to look like next year? And I'm tasked with, hey, run with it. And so I was in the shower when I was running. I'm like, okay, like what could this look like? What could make this better? What can we do differently? And I love that. I love being able to vision cast and think of those things. And I know not everything will stick.
Awesome.
And things will get shot down, but I'm really enjoying doing it. So this last week, some of the projects I've worked on and stuff that I'm done, I'm like, I love doing this stuff. It's what I do for myself, but now, for Rev and on a grander scale. So I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying
to see you excited about it is good too, because I think there were lots of things that you did in your previous role that were exciting. You enjoyed it, was great, but it was like that tension of, but I want to be doing this. I want to, so now to kind of like
tension of not being in that position to run. But now getting permission to, I'm like, I'm all about.
Yes. So good.
Yes. Okay, my friend. Thank you for joining me.
I'm going to get the hearts again.
I know, let's get the hearts. I think it does fireworks if you do this too, but don't quote me. No, maybe this. There it goes. All these things.
Sorry for that high-pitched scream.
I know. All these things I discovered on the last instructor training, because I do this and then pop up and I'd be like, whoa, what just happened?
What?
It's like a classroom of people. So yeah.
That's
but
amazing.
Thank you for joining me.
Yes,
Thanks for the conversation. You. I love talking about this with you because I feel like we have good, healthy good, healthy friendship. And obviously, we always have room to grow, but I feel like,
Yes.
you know, that we got it.
I want to grow with you.
All right, friends, thank you for listening in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.